Hello, fans and true believers. Welcome to a new weekly podcast brought to you by RJ Media called The Nerds Corner, where I, your host, Brooks Hauge, will be your guide into the world of the nerdy with comic books, movies, TV, any pop culture references. I got it all for you guys. So this week, I'm going over a few things. We got Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer, which came out recently. The two new people are joining the team for CW's Legends of Tomorrow, Kid Flash and John Constantine. We got let's see. There's a whole lot of news going on around Black Panther, which premieres next week with being a rivalry between DC and Marvel. Then we got the Black Lightning, which is a great new show from the CW, joining its cast of other CW shows, including The Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, and Legends. Yeah, so let's... First things first, Marvel's smallest heroes make a big return in the newest trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Here's what we know so far. So for that, from the beginning of the trailer, it's very clear that Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, is still on the run after his involvement with Team Cap during Civil War. So he has a conversation with his partner, the Wasp, and in it she basically says that if she had been with him during the Civil War issue, he would not have been caught at all. And then we see like other scenes of like him at his house and the FBI is there, which is weird to me because he looks like he's on the run. Another thing, so Hank Pym takes this building and basically he uses his Pym particles to shrink it. So, and then it turns into basically a suitcase, so he can just pull it around. And I mean, my question is like, why is this building so important that he needs to take it with him when he's on the run? And secondly, did he plan for this? Because you would have had to either build the building to be suitcase size and then blown it up, or you had to have a suitcase handle built into a giant building. Yeah. And it appears that Sonny Burch is one of the main villains in this movie, who I'm going to explain in just a minute, is trying to get his hands on the building. So I'm wondering, why do people want it? But that also brings us to the two villains of this movie. We have Sonny Burch's and the Ghost. And the Ghost is one of my favorite characters, but just him in a minute. So Sonny Burch is... Usually, he was the chairman of Cross Technologies in the comics. And if you remember Darren Cross, the villain who became Yellow Jacket in the first movie, so there's that connection. And it's said that he has... In the comics, he was a partner to Obadiah Stane, who you might remember from the very first Iron Man movie. He was the dude in the giant metal suit that he stole, and he was like Tony's business partner that betrayed him. So in the comics, he kind of made a debut when Iron Man revealed his secret identity to the world and tried to exploit it using the legal consequences of that. And then basically, he is primarily an Iron Man villain. Like, if you don't know what I mean by primarily an Iron Man villain, like you think about it, Joker is usually a Batman villain, Green Goblin is a Spider-Man villain, stuff like that. But then we go on to the Ghost. So the Ghost is basically an industrial saboteur whose identity is unknown. He's never been revealed in the comics, and to explain this, he has been said to have had his identity completely erased. He completely erased his identity. And many of his, like, he goes by different names, like the Phantasm, John Morley, and Casper. So... a lot of references in that. But it said that outside of his suit, when he goes by John Morley, he's antisocial and has trouble talking to anyone, and he cannot do it. But in the suit, he is very terrifying. He's a very scary man. Let me just think. Like, if I remember when I was a kid, first time I ever saw the Ghost, it was on that Iron Man Armored Adventures TV series from Nickelodeon, and that was... he terrified me at that time. Uh, Other affiliations, he's with the Thunderbolts, which is like Marvel's Suicide Squad. They're a group of basically military people, criminals that the government military are using against other villains or even heroes, because there's no line for that. He is affiliated with AIM Technologies, which appeared in Iron Man 3, and apparent he comes from he has affiliations with a company called Roxxon Oil, which is very big in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. Its founder is Hugh Jones. He was a member of the Hand from the Defenders. Current references, it appeared in Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 as references. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was referenced. It was also referenced in Agent Carter, basically getting a startup. Daredevil, it was basically just a reference legal suit that he was going through. Iron Fist, it's another company he had to deal with, and the unreleased new show Cloak and Dagger from Freeform, in the comics, those two heroes, Cloak and Dagger, got their powers from an experiment done by Roxxon. So that's kind of like a cool. But he's a freelance industrial saboteur. So he hates companies. He thinks they're all corrupt and evil, and he wants to take them down. To do that, he has a special suit known as the Ghost Suit. It can make you invisible, and intangible originally, but it's been upgraded so it can mask all sound and override devices with touch. So if he touches something, he can basically hack it. Yeah. So after that, we got the Wasp and her new suit. So it's clearly different from what it was seen in the post-credit scene of the first Ant-Man. Like both her suit and Scott's suit were upgraded. Another cool reference that you can see in the costumes is on their chest. It makes vaguely the shape of like an ant and the wasp around, which is kind of a cool reference, cool thing. And I thought it was just cool. But her suit has the capability of firing laser blasters, which is different than Scott's suit, and it also has wings for when she shrinks. So basically, it's new specifically for her. And in the trailer, there's a cheeky nod from Hank where he says that he had the technology available for Scott. He just decided not to use it for him, which is kind of funny. But I kind of get it since she's his daughter and Scott is just a guy he kind of recruited. And then another thing, it does not appear to have the Giant Man tech, which is we see Giant Man in the trailer. He's can grow just like massively, and it's kind of scary. But her suit does not appear to have that, which kind of makes it fair for Scott. But another thing, their van can apparently shrink and grow at will, which is kind of cool. And so their getaway van, they can use that to get away and basically do whatever they want because they can shrink under cars and enlarge in. And in the trailer, this is just like a final note. I thought it was cool how they got like one of those. You remember from when you were a kid, they had like cartoon heads on them, and you flip it up and it give you a candy. They had the Hello Kitty one where they threw out and then just threw their disc at to their enlarging discs, and that helped, which was kind of cool. Yeah. And then so on to our next spot. The roster for the CW's team of time travel the CW's time traveling team of heroes just got larger with the addition of 2 new members. John Constantine, dabbler in the dark arts as he likes to refer to himself, and Wally West, aka Kid Flash. So what we know so far is that John has already appeared on the show. He has Constantine has broken into the Wave Rider somehow, which is the time-traveling ship. And then he has encountered Sarah, who I don't know if they're friends, but the last time they saw each other, it was when resurrecting Sarah's soul after she got reborn from the Lazarus pit after she died in Arrow. So I'm kind of interested to see them bring back some of the mystical arts stuff that they did. They had in season one, they had their villain Vandal Savage, who was an immortal who through like could live forever and was very much into the mystical stuff, which is a great contrast for the team of like a sci-fi team of people traveling through space on a giant ship. And then season two, they also had the three main villains return, which was the Reverse Flash, Dark Arrow, aka Merlin, and Damien Dark. And in that, they were trying to find the Spear of Destiny to change history, which brings up another question of how Reverse Flash survived everything and kept coming back, especially in Earth X and all that. It's just confusing, and I think they need to explain that. Like, you got erased from history twice, and the last one we know was permanent, probably. But then he reappears with the face of Harrison Wells again to mess with Barry. Somehow he managed to survive getting erased from time and travel to another Earth filled with Nazis, and then come back and confront Barry. But another thing we know is that Wally West, who has not gotten the screen time he has deserved on The Flash, is coming over and joining the Legends. This has been confirmed through like Instagram posts and interviews, and I'm excited to see that because I've always thought that they needed a speedster on that show. I thought that someone that could travel through time on their own would be very comfortable on a ship. And it's gonna be really weird because they need like someone else, people to fill the cast after, Dr. Stein. This is a spoiler. Died in Crisis on Earth X, and his partner Jax had to leave just because he had nothing to contribute to the team really. But they did get Citizen Cold from Earth X to join them for the meantime. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. That's definitely something that's gonna be interesting. Another thing, Black Panther. So Black Panther releases next week, and the age-old fanboy argument of who's better, Marvel or DC, heats up in a new way in several different stories. So there's a couple of different ways that this has happened. One positive, one negative. So another thing is that DC fans want Black Panther to fail because they believe that on Rotten Tomatoes, Disney is buying out. They're buying out all their reviews and saying and docking all of DC's, which is not true. They believe this after like The Last Jedi did so well, which it was not an amazing movie. I'm not saying that. I enjoyed The Last Jedi. I thought it was a good movie, but there is no way to appease everyone, in my opinion. But they basically got on to sabotage Rotten Tomatoes by putting in negative reviews, and they got almost 3,000 people to contribute to this, which is ridiculous. This is utterly ridiculous before Facebook and Rotten Tomatoes shut it down. But in new news, basically, Rotten Tomatoes has released their official score of Black Panther, which received 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is good. I think that movie deserves a lot of respect. It's the first black superhero movie we've ever gotten. This is really big. I think it's Black Panther is an amazing hero. He's incredible in every single way. And I just don't like how people who are upset about what's happening with them, with their movies, because I don't think DC's reviews are fair, but I don't think they're inaccurate in a way. Like Justice League was not good. Suicide Squad was alright. They just do not have all the stuff they're looking for. They can't get a cohesive movie together, at all. But versely, there's a group of DC fans who are paying for students to see Black Panther with their hashtag Black Panther Challenge, which I'd like to see that more. It's in the Bronx. There's a school called the Arte Education School, and it's low income families, and they're paying so they're this school can go and see Black Panther, and they're all DC fans. This was started by a guy named Frederick Joseph, and I think it is actually really amazing. But moving on, so Black Lightning is back. So this is the CW's newest hero show is coming out swinging, and it's striking like, well, it's striking like lightning, for lack of a better word. It follows the stories of a retired hero called Jefferson Pierce, who has not used his powers in 9 years to be there for his daughters who are now growing up or grown up. And in the consequence of it, so here are some just, I'm going over this stuff. So in his city, there's a lot of prejudice and crime. And so he runs a school as a principal trying to help people more than he thought he could as Black Lightning. In the course of it, though, he is forced to put the suit back on and use his powers again because his daughters get kidnapped at gunpoint by the gang that's prevalent in the streets called the 100, which is another CW show reference to their other show, the 100. But I thought basically they come into school with a gun and they take his daughters, and he puts on the suit and he goes out and tries to fix this because he's done with everything. So throughout the course of the first episode, we see there's a lot of racial profiling done against Jefferson Pierce, even when he's not in the Black Lightning costume. It's a line in after. So a club is being shot out, and he's trying to get his daughter out of there. And I think what's cool is that so he gets outside, and he's trying to put his hands up. He's in a suit. He looks very nice, and basically a cop says this to his face: "Get your black ass on the ground." And in that's kind of what triggers him. But earlier in the episode, at the very beginning, he gets pulled over by someone who thinks that he just robbed a liquor store, and he goes out yelling, saying, "It's like, what was the description? A black man in a Volvo with 2 daughters as a getaway." And I thought that was just because he's black, he got pulled over, and he stated that it was like the 4th time that month, which I thought that it's really cool how he's trying to clean up the streets and end like racism in a way. And then throughout the 2nd and 3rd episodes, so they start with there's prostitution going on in a hotel, and he wants to put a stop to it in any way that he can, and thus he goes after the man running it. He's a gang member, and his name is Lala, and he used to be a student of Pierce. And so there was a woman who appeared called Lawanda. So the second 2 episodes are both called Lawanda, and then they had book of, and then something. It is kind of unknown. I'm not gonna reveal like the title names, but I'm gonna say brief overview of what happened. Essentially, after his daughters were rescued from the Seahorse, which is the hotel, he is then faced with the fact that he has to address this as a principal to other students, and an ex-student of her daughter is there. Her name is Lawanda, and her daughter is stuck there. And so, out of anger that no one is doing anything, like, I'm gonna say this, the cops are incompetent most of the time. They spend more time chasing after Black Lightning because he's a vigilante than they are actually cleaning up the streets. And in the course of this, he's still trying to refuse to be Black Lightning again, just because he wants to be back with his wife, and who left him after she found out, and he still wants to be there for his daughters. But in the course of the episodes, Lawanda finds Lala, and she tries to put him on video, and the first thing he does is shoot her without thinking, and this is the thing that triggers him to become Black Lightning once again, for lightning to strike twice, to return to the streets. And in the course, he goes and he stops Lala, and he tries to And he catches Lala. But the thing is, in the when he finally gets to put him in jail and capture him, uh, I think there's just a really cool scene like right before. So he finds out the address of his apartment, but he doesn't know like the apartment number, and he's walking in, and the bellhop stops him and opens the door and says "Black Lightning, my man," which is just like the streets have more respect for him. They need him back, which is an interesting concept to have, like a hero like you thought was gone to return and come back. I think that's a powerful message. And like even when he starts beating up the gang members that are in the lobby trying to keep him out, um, another guy holds the elevator for him and says, "I got you," trying to just basically say, we're glad to have you back, Black Lightning." But he takes the stairs just so he can get a cool hallway fight scene, which was amazing. But he eventually gets to Lala, and he he's beating him up, kind of more anti-heroish. But I understand because he kidnapped his daughters, starting to kill them, then like has been sending goons to interrogate them or terrorize them ever since. And I thought that was really, really intense. And but he lets the cops take him just so he can get out of there. And after that, Lala is put in jail. But the thing is that what we find is there's a villain called Tobias who works for another character named Lady E, these appear to be the heads of the crime organization. And so in the course of that, Tobias walks in to the precinct, into the lockup, and all the cops just leave, and he just kills Lala right there so he doesn't talk. Which basically shows how much work Black Lightning is going to have to do to be able to clean up the streets. If even they can't even trust police officers, how are they going to trust anyone? And I think that's just kind of sets the stage for it. Then afterwards, we have another episode where Black Lightning is trying to clear up the streets. So the church is there trying to hold basically a funeral march. Funeral march for Lawanda, who has died, who's been murdered, as seen in the previous episode. And they're to try to basically like say they're not going to stand for this violence anymore. We do get a quick message from Lady E, who basically says that she believes in the Bible because it keeps people in line. But Black Lightning shows up, and he's basically like their messiah. They don't need to listen to what she says anymore. She doesn't like it, so she tries to get Tobias to firstly ruin the tribute and the candlelit vigil to the march by having people kill like civilians. But of course, knowing that this is a very likely possibility, Black Lightning Jefferson Pierce stops it. The only thing is that Tobias then drives up in a car and managed to shoot the preacher and another student of his. So he saw like a student get shot because of ricocheting bullets. And thus, the character, the student who got shot, he was trying to get out by being the best athlete, but the best student he could. He was also the boyfriend of one of his daughters, and that kind of hit him hard. And thusly, like that's all that's been said. But what I'm trying to say is that throughout this entire course of like him returning, the show does a really good job of addressing racism and having him as a hero that needs to be a hero, even though he thinks there's a better way, and he realizes there's not at a certain point. And I personally recommend everyone go watch Black Lightning just because it is by far the best CW show. It's above Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow. All of them pale in comparison to how well the show is doing, just story wise. Just as a final note for that, I hope they can do really well in keeping it going, keeping his momentum. Is what I'm trying to say. And our last topic of today, I'm going to bring up what aired today, which was the Deadpool 2 trailer. And I cannot tell you how much I love Deadpool. So in the trailer, if you have not watched it, you should go watch it. It is the funniest thing I have ever seen. So in it, we introduced to Cable, aka Josh Brolin. So what's interesting about him, this is just a quick side note. So he plays Thanos in Infinity War, and then 2 weeks later he's going to be Cable in Deadpool. So basically 2 movies, 2 weeks apart. I think that's kind of just a cool message. But we see Cable wake up and basically explain stuff. He says, like, people don't understand what pain is. It's like, and then it keeps going. But there's this scene where Cable has a metal arm, like all metal. And so he has to wear like the green screen glove. But the thing is, they did not edit it in, and Deadpool stops him and says, it's like, how hard is it to edit in a metal arm? It's like, we're not trying to remove a mustache or anything, as a joke about in Justice League, for when Superman returned, they CGI'd his beard away, which he was growing out for the new movie Mission Impossible Fallout, which is interesting. So it just looked very, very bad. So he was just making a joke at that. And then he says a quote from Josh Brolin as Thanos, "Fine, I'll do it myself." And then he does like stick figure reenactments with basically it's like stick figure or toys that he's dressed up. He has one, he's dressed up as Woody from Toy Story, just as a kind of a nod to like, now he's owned by Disney. I think that's just kind of funny. So it's just like kind of funny thing. The same company that produces Toy Story now produces him and his vulgar mouth. Like, Deadpool is hilarious, but he's a very vulgar person. And thus, like, he's doing this, and he does a lot of jokes, and he finishes off with a one-liner for Cable from him, which I can't say because it's, again, vulgar because it's Deadpool. That's his whole thing. But then, like, timer rings, and he says, that was unrealistically fast. And we see more of the trailer, such as, like, Cable blocking bullets and going back, and just other stuff. We see the introduction of Domino, which is another black character that's being introduced. And they keep going, just like the flashing of scenes, like the fight scenes. Then Cable basically breaks into Deadpool's apartment, and in that essentially, how do I say this? So his partner, the guy with the glasses, who I forget the name of at the moment, he pulls out a gun, so does Deadpool, and Blind Al, his roommate, who's, again, blind, and so Deadpool points it directly at Cable, and Al points the gun like over him, and Wade has to grab the gun and move it over, just so it's aiming at the right place, because she's blind, and it was just like a funny joke. And then Cable says the same line that Deadpool did for his one-liner, which I still cannot say. His basically joke about, and then Deadpool looks directly at the camera. It's like, wow, that's just lazy writing. Which I find is just like, it's, again, another fourth wall break. It probably won't make it into the movie, but it will probably just be like a trailer wall break, which is really, really cool, I think. Yeah, but if you enjoyed everything here, make sure to check back next week to the Nerds Corner. Not sponsored, but brought to you by RJ Media. And if you want to not just listen to me, and you want to see me with all, basically move my hands, which I do a lot, then you should check out the podcast on the RJ Media YouTube channel, and go check out everyone else's. So I'll see you guys next time, and I thank you for listening.